It's an uncharacteristically cold morning here in April in Florida, but that's okay. I welcome the change. We've got some PM to do on the garbage truck, and it's better to do it in cold weather than hot, in my opinion. The truck has 4,200 miles and 319 hours. I'm part of a garbage truck mechanic group on Facebook, and a piece of advice I learned from them is that with garbage trucks, you go more on hours than miles, because they're doing a lot more work on the hour side than the mile side. So if you wait for maintenance for certain mile intervals, like the instruction manual may suggest, then there's a chance you're going too long between services. So at least for us, 300 hours is kind of the target I'm going for. So for this interval, it is Sunday, the day before the route, so I'm gonna do my lubrication just like normal. But we've got two of our fuel filters that we're gonna change out. Our engine oil and our engine filter. Then we've got the engine air filter. And something that I'm gonna try too, I got one of these engine oil analysis kits off Amazon. So you fill this up with oil, you send it in, and then they give you a readout that shows what the composition of the oil is. From my understanding, you can figure out if you've got coolant leaking into your oil from that, so some type of gasket leak. You can also figure out if there's higher concentration of metals in there than should be. Then you can say, okay, I've got some metal wear somewhere, and just try and get an idea of the health of your engine before something terrible happens. With this being brand new, I don't expect there to be any issues, but I want to do that right off the bat in order to get kind of a baseline of what a new engine looks like. In trying to edit this video together, I pretty quickly realized that filming this first maintenance was a mistake, because I completely missed some things when I was filming. I didn't talk about some things when I was filming. I completely forgot to do the engine oil analysis. As the engine oil was draining, I was supposed to capture some. Completely forgot about that. So this video is definitely not going to be a how-to, because it would be a terrible one. So instead, we're just going to focus on how much did all this stuff cost. Part of owning this garbage truck is maintenance. If you're looking at starting your own company, that's something you've got to consider. So we're going to look at all the individual components as you see me installing them. We'll talk about whether it was difficult or not, and then how much it is, and tally it all up at the end. You see me installing the engine air filter now. That is very simple. It's just some clips that you pop off, a cover that comes out, and it slides out. And these numbers are approximate, and they're before tax. At the end will include tax, but it's about $60 for this engine air filter. These Isuzus are really nice to work on because of the fact that the cab flips up. You've got a ton of access to the top of the engine. The oil change itself, it's pretty much just like any oil change you've ever done in any type of car. Everything's high enough that you don't have to jack anything up to get any kind of clearance. You know, you can scoot right underneath it. You just pull the drain plug to drain the oil. You pull the old oil filter off. Since this filter installs straight up and down, one of the good practices that you can do is fill it up with oil before you install it. I don't think that's something that's going to blow up your vehicle if you don't do it, but it is just a good practice, because if there's an empty space where there's supposed to be oil and there's not, then it's just going to take extra time for it to fill up. So that engine oil filter that you see me installing, that is about $32. All these products are Fleet Value brand, which I believe is Isuzu's house label for the parts that they create for their dealer network. I hand tightened that oil filter down, and then I went a little bit past with a pipe wrench to really make sure it was seated. The engine oil we are putting in the machine is about $37 a gallon, and I bought 3 gallons worth. I think I used 2 something, but just for the sake of this, we're going to say it's 3 gallons of service. The next component to work on is the fuel water separator. I think this is a diesel engine thing, but sometimes water can get in the fuel, and you want to make sure that is removed so it doesn't get in the engine. So you will have a fuel water separator, usually easy to access, usually easy to get to. And this is what mine looks like. And you can see that there's a layer of crud at the bottom. The other thing this filter does is give a chance for dirt that's in the fuel or sediment or whatever to settle out before it heads to your engine fuel filter. So this is kind of just like a first line of defense to make sure that water or debris does not get in the fuel system, because that's very possible to happen depending on where your fuel source is. So there's this little petcock down at the bottom that you can open up. It's just a plastic thing that once you open it up, junk starts flowing through. In the footage that you're seeing right now, it was previously recorded. This is just something you do on a regular basis outside of the maintenance. Like if you see water or junk at the bottom of that, you just grab a container, twist that, and drain it so it doesn't, make it up to that filter. And you can see how it's almost like oil and vinegar. If you've ever got a salad dressing bottle where they separate out. So the water and the diesel fuel are different consistencies, different densities rather. So you can see the water at the bottom and the diesel fuel on top. You can also see all the crud that's in there. So that's maintenance that doesn't cost you any money, and you do it as you see sediment at the bottom of that thing. To actually remove that filter, it's a little bit more involved. There is a nut on top that you loosen for airflow. Then you can release that petcock again, and that entire assembly will drain out. And then the clear plastic, it's just a lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. It was on there pretty tight. I thought I was going to break it. But there's a big plastic nut adapter on the bottom that you can just put a socket on. Once you get that off, the fuel filter itself will just pop off. You just pull it down, then you just swap it out. And the other thing I did was fill that plastic bowl back up with diesel fuel. And that way when you screw it back on, there's not big air pockets. There are still some, but you can purge that out. There's a spring-loaded manual button at the top of that fuel filter that you can press, and it will push air through the system. So this is after I've also replaced the engine fuel filter, which is right below this little bleeder valve, and now you're just bleeding all the air out of the system. Those fuel filters are not something I filmed. It was a little too difficult. The fuel water filter was around $37, and the engine fuel filter was around $35. Additionally, since this is a full maintenance day, we did grease as well. You can get a 10-pack of grease for, I think, like $50. So they're really not that much money. It's $5 a tube, and I can usually get, I don't know, like 3 to 4 greases out of one tube. So on the high side, I'm using $2.50 of grease every time I grease the machine. It's probably less than that. Once you add tax in, that means that a full service like this is $300, which I think is incredibly reasonable for a truck that does this amount of work. Like I think if you took, I've got a Chevy 2500 that's a heavier duty truck. I think if I took that to the dealer, I would probably be spending at least $300 for them to change that oil out. I could be wrong, but I don't think this was an expensive thing at all. But it's important to do this because this truck is getting used in what I would consider severe duty work. The trash is not kind to the machine, the stopping, the starting, the idling. It's important to do this kind of maintenance. So I'm thankful to have the skill set, the ability, the desire to do it all myself, because that's going to save you a ton of money. And if you're looking at starting your own trash pickup business, the more maintenance on these vehicles that you can do yourself, the more starting a business makes sense. If it's something where you have to outsource every little piece of work that you do, it's going to be a lot more expensive, and it's going to take more time before the business starts paying. So just a short video showing what a full service maintenance looks like, how much it costs. If you've got any other questions about the process, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. The best thing to do really is just to shoot me an email with any questions you have. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it.